let me know when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So howdy, my name is Jack Richardson, and today we'll be talking about New Year's resolutions. So here's some examples of New Year's resolutions, but before we get into those, I want to ask you guys a couple questions. So how many of you guys ever made a New Year's resolution?
I did. We did.
Okay. How many of you guys have kept those until the end of January?
I did not.
Okay. So how many of you guys have made it to the end of February? All right, so the numbers go down. So we see a kind of trend where people oftentimes make resolutions, but then they tend to fall off by the end of January, February, few making it even to March, which is only 3 months. And so here's a couple of examples. We'll talk about these at the end as well. But we have be a better husband and boyfriend, get more attention by any means necessary, 2 cigarettes a day, learn a new word every single day, and bike more. And these are often people's resolutions where they have a common goal in mind, but sometimes we don't really know how to make a resolution that is going to be an effective one and one that we can keep until the end of the year. And so a common question we'll be asking is, what makes these examples good or bad? And a couple of more questions we'll be talking about are, what are New Year's resolutions? How do you make them, and how do you keep them? So to go back to the beginning, around 4,000 years ago, there was a tradition that was called a Kitu in ancient Babylonia. And what they did was they crowned a new king at the beginning of the year. And they also paid their debts to the city, to the government. They also gave back what was borrowed. And so what this kind of showed historians was that they kind of made a promise to themselves to do these things and to pay their debts and to give back what was borrowed. And in return, they would receive good favor from the gods. And so this is kind of that first idea that we see about New Year's resolutions. And so from there, we also see throughout the course of history, it kind of evolving and adapting. We see in ancient Rome with the goddess Janus, they would put a sign on their door. Whether it be good or evil, it's kind of to bring those spirits to them the next year. And they'll also be promising to do good things or to do bad things sometimes as well in that next year. And once again, we see a promise being made at the beginning of the year. And so even in the early Christian church with John Wesley, who kind of headed the Methodist denomination of the Christian faith, he also held services on New Year's Eve where they would pray and they would repent and they would say, I'm going to do better next year. And we see kind of the self-improvement aspect be brought into the idea of New Year's resolutions. And so we kind of see a shift from religious roots to more secularized traditions. And this is kind of just the early history of the resolution itself. And so a couple of statistics here brought to you by history.com is that 45% of Americans make New Year's resolutions, but only 8% of them were found to follow through, and that is to the end of the year. According to a study out of Arizona State University, 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. And another study by the University of Scranton, 8% complete their goals, but only 80% fail, which is a huge number and not something that I suspected when I went into my research. And so why are these numbers so high? Like, what makes so many people fail at making their resolution? And also, what are the 8% doing right? Why, what are they doing differently? Are they making a better goal? Are they just more determined to finish and to complete what they started? And so a couple of things that we look at to answer those questions. We have some barriers to behavioral change. And this is brought to you by a clinical professor at Arizona State University. And he said that they're not seeing results. And so if you were to make a goal of losing 50 pounds, then if you were not going to lose 50 pounds in a day, which is kind of possible, you would have to be expected to lose that over a period of time. And over that period of time, if you're not seeing results, then you're going to be less motivated to complete that goal. And so what he says is that if you don't see results, you're going to lose motivation. If you lose motivation, you won't complete that goal. And so also Don Stenhoff, another clinical professor outside of Arizona State University, he said we need to see the intermediate steps. And so what that means is that if you're going to lose 50 pounds, it's a lot better to make a goal that says I'm going to lose 8 pounds a month, or I'm going to lose 10 pounds a month. That way, in those intermediate steps each month, you're able to see, hey, I've been making progress. I'm going to be successful. And that way, you're also able to keep that bigger goal, but just by breaking it up into smaller ones. And so Adam Ross also says that setting smaller short-term goals can build and reinforce a behavior that will encompass a much larger aspect of your life. And so how do you make a good New Year's resolution? And so the American Psychological Association is a collaboration of psychologists from all over the world, and they come together and they write these articles. And so what they said was that there's 5 steps to making a good New Year's resolution. And the first being start small. So you don't want to have a large encompassing goal. You want to start off with a small goal. And you also want to change one behavior at a time. You don't want to work on a lot of different things in your life because that's too much for you to handle at one time. So you want to focus on that one behavior. The third thing is they want you to talk about it. They want you to be able to discuss with people. They want you to be able to talk about it with yourself and say, hey, am I meeting these goals, or is this something that I'm achieving? Am I succeeding here? Am I failing here? They want you to not beat yourself up when you see failure. So if you don't lose those 8 pounds a month, then that doesn't mean stop making that goal. That means next month lose those 8 pounds or lose even more. Like, motivate yourself through those failures. And also they want you to ask for support, because a lot of times New Year's resolutions are about ourselves, but we can't do that by ourselves. So we need to ask for our friends or family for support on making those New Year's resolutions. So going back from the beginning, a couple of the examples that I listed are being a better husband and boyfriend. So if we wanted to change that from being a bad resolution to a good resolution, we could say, hey, I want to take my wife out to dinner once a week. That's something that's quantifiable. That's a smaller set goal that you can actually achieve. And whenever you do that week, it'll motivate you to do it the next week. And by reinforcing that small habit, it can actually lead to a change in the way that you're a husband to your wife. And so also going from good to better, right? We see bike more. Off the top of my head, that sounds like a good resolution. Like, you want to exercise more, you want to get in shape, you want to lose weight. But if you were to say, I want to bike more, what does that really mean, right? How can you really see success? How can you see those results? And so if we change that to, I want to go on a bike ride 3 times a week, that's something that you can really set for yourself, and you can go on a bike ride 3 times a week and say, yes, I have biked more, and this is how, and this is why. And so by changing these kind of resolutions, you'll see more success in the way that you live your next year. And so, thank you.
Oh, Jack.